As per the parliamentary calendar for the 5th session, the House has so far pronounced itself on the report of Auditor General in as far as PAC Central and PAC local government were concerned. Yesterday, the House took a decision to adopt the recommendations of the Auditor General with regard to the entities under PAC local government, because the committee was unable to report back in time. Today we will receive a report from PAC COSASE, and the leader of opposition is in the House to have the report on the floor.
Honorable Speaker, a short while ago, Honorable Segona and Honorable Bahati had a friendly exchange. I think they had gone on the outside to sort it out. Now that Honorable Segona is back, we can invite him to the floor to present his report.
Thank you. Honorable Segona is supposed to present reports of 93 entities. He will tell us how many entities are ready and how many are outstanding.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Indeed, Uganda has a Ministry of Disaster Preparedness. And it is working. Right, Honorable Speaker and Honorable colleagues, I want to thank you for indulgence. Yes, we have 10 reports ready and are being uploaded. Some have already been uploaded, I understand. I'm only requesting for 10 minutes to have them presented with your permission. I thank you.
You have 10 reports out of 93?
Yes.
That is 9.3% of...
It is correct, Right Honorable Speaker.
Go ahead and present.
That is the time you gave us. I just need 10 minutes to put my paperwork in order. I have the minutes and the reports being uploaded. Kindly indulge me with those 10 minutes.
So you don't have the report here?
Not here with me. They are on your system. Yes, they are uploaded.
It is uploaded?
Yes.
Yes.
And I just need 10 minutes to pick them and read them over.
Honorable members, you've heard from Honorable Segona. Members, we broke off because the report was not yet ready, and the chair has given me some reports which is ready to start with. But however, the chair said that he's not been able to finish to 100% because of the time that was given to him. The same time is prescribed under Article 163(5) of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. And I'm also happy that the chair was here in this house other than me. And could have been one of the people who drafted that. But at the same time, PAC Central was equally given the same time, and they delivered. So the issue of the time shouldn't be, because these reports were forwarded on 21st January, and we are in September. We even gave additional time. So, Chair, it's not about the time. Yes, over to you.
I want to thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, and colleagues for the grace extended. Let me first clarify, Right Honorable Speaker, as you have guided, you are indeed right that the time an issue is inscribed in our Constitution. I was not making reference to the person of the Speaker, but the Republic, which gave us that time. At another opportune moment, we shall have occasion to interrogate that time, but I can only thank you profoundly for your patience and guidance. I also appreciate that the pressure you exert on us is well-intentioned and intended to ensure delivery as required. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, as guided by the rules, permit me to lay on table the minutes of the proceedings in respect of the reports that I am about to present, and also present original copies of the reports so far for secretariat purposes.
Thank you. Those are the minutes for the 10 entities.
Right Honourable Speaker, with your guidance, a number of reports, as you earlier stated, were forwarded to the committee, and we have been able to process some. And I believe as we progress, you will notice that, yes, the committee ordinarily would have wanted more time, but because of the constraints, we shall proceed to present those that are ready. Right Honourable Speaker, the first report is the report of the Committee on Commissions, Statutory Authorities and State Enterprises on the report of the Auditor General on the Uganda Revenue Authority Corporate Services for the audit year ended December 2024. And I'll go into the summary because the reports are uploaded, and our intention is to go through the aspects of a salient nature. Right Honourable Speaker, usage of expired appropriations was noticed by the Auditor General as an outstanding anomaly, contrary to Regulation 17 of the Public Finance Management Regulations 2016, which requires a vote to repay the unexpended balance of the money to the consolidated fund by 31st of July of the preceding financial year. However, the Auditor General noted that URA had a cash balance of 46.6 billion as at 30th June 2023 on the expenditure account with Stanbic, of which 4.3 was not transferred to the consolidated fund and was subsequently utilized after the expiry of the appropriation. URA had a cash balance of 26.6 billion as at 30th June 2024 on the expenditure account indicated with Stanbic, but had not transferred the said amount by 30th October 2024. Auditor General was concerned and noted that the use of expired appropriations contravenes the Public Finance Management Regulations, distorts the government's planning initiatives, and overstates the entity's budget. In justification of the same, management informed the committee, as stated at page 5 of the report, that the authority had unutilized funds amounting to 4.356031,761 that were subsequently returned to the consolidated fund on 24th November 2023, and that it operates on an accrual basis accounting, and as such, invoices worth 17 billion for the financial year were already committed by June 30th, 24. As a result, URA's operations account had been garnished by a court order in favor of one John Imani Raguha for the amount of 26.2 billion, hence preventing the payment of the invoices worth 17 billions that were due and charged against the appropriation for the financial year. The Ganshi order remained in force until 8th August 2024, following the consent settlement agreement between URA and the plaintiff for 15 billion Uganda shillings. The balance of 11 billion was utilized to partially settle the outstanding 17 billion while 11 billion was utilized to settle the outstanding 17 billion, while the balance of 6 billion was charged to the budget of financial year 2024-25. URA subsequently sought for supplementary allocation of Uganda shillings 15 billion, which was granted. See attached Annex 4.1a, payment advice of the transfer for 4.3 billion. Garnishi order NASE 4.1c, schedule of the outstanding invoices for June 30th, 2024, and Uganda shilling 17 billion, Annex 4.1d, consent settlement agreed is attached as 4.1a, and the authorization from the PSST for 15 billion. While meeting the committee, the accounting officer stated that delays partly emanated from the Ganshi order in execution of miscellaneous application number 641 of 2023, arising from a civil suit number 274 of 2021, a tax dispute between URA and John Maniraguha. He further conceded that the delays in transferring the funds and pledged he conceded to the delays and that transferring the funds and pledged to improve going forward. The committee observed that whereas the money was meant to have been taken to the consolidated fund by 31st July of the preceding financial year, the funds were only returned in November 2024, contrary to Regulation 17.3 of the Public Finance Management Regulations 2016, which requires to pay the unexpended balance of the money. This particular business person, Mr. John Maniraguha, could have closed or lost his business due to the protracted legal battles. The case had dragged on for over 20 years. Despite the guaranteed amount being 26.2 billion, there was an excess of 4.3 billion at the completion of the accounting and audit process, which was not guaranteed and therefore could have been transferred. The decision by URA to settle out of court arose from the fact that it had exhausted the entire appeal process. The entity's retention of the amount was irregular and may have deprived other entities from access and use of the same funds, in addition to distortion of planning. The ADR process with URA is sanctioned and supervised by the Commissioner General, against whose assessment may be the subject of dispute, thereby compromising the independence of the process. The committee therefore recommends that the accounting officer should ensure compliance with the provisions of Regulation 17 by returning all unused funds to the consolidated fund. 2, URA should always endeavor to make the best out of ADR, alternative dispute resolution, where tax disputes arise, in order to mitigate possible closure or loss of businesses due to protracted tax contestations. URA should streamline its process to avoid complicated procedures, to make them accessible, and also enhance the independence of the ADR process through legislative action by way of amendment. The second significant query, Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, that was raised by the Auditor General related to double contributions by government to retirement benefits to staff. Section 10(1) of the National Social Security Fund Act, Cap 230, requires that every contributing employer shall, for every month during which he or she pays wages to eligible employees, remit to the fund within 15 days following the last day of the month for which the relevant wages are paid, a standard contribution of 15% calculated on the last total wages paid during the month to that employee. Accordingly, the authority pays a mandatory 10% contribution as the employer to the National Social Security Fund. However, the Auditor General noted that in addition to the NSSF contribution, the authority contributes an additional 10% to URA staff retirement benefit scheme, which is an in-house retirement scheme started by URA in 2007. As a result, Uganda shillings 46 billion was paid to the retirement benefits for employees as shown below. NSSF 24.6. URA retirement benefits scheme 22.4. A total of 47 billion. The Auditor General's view. In the Auditor General's view, the above tantamount to double contributions to the retirement benefits. Management explained that the authority introduced the URA Staff Retirement Benefits Scheme, SRBS, as part of augmenting the employee value proposition. This, according to the authority, would attract and retain talent in the highly competitive labor market. The SRBS is currently one of the key initiatives supporting the URA employee value proposition, ranking as one of the most significant factors in attracting and retaining talent, as reflected in the employee satisfaction surveys. Many employees consider both salary and a secure retirement package when making career decisions, thereby contributing to staff longevity. 3. Compared to other key government agencies, URA offers relatively lower salaries and does not provide additional allowances to mitigate the rising cost of living to attract and retain staff. Therefore, the authority highly depends on other benefits accorded to staff, of which SRBS remains a critical element. Scrapping SRBS may lead to spiraling talent attrition that would adversely impede the URA revenue mobilization agenda and the authority's contribution to tax to GDP ratio, which is pertinent for national development. Refer to Annex 4.2a with a comparison between URA pay and other government agencies, and Table 4.2b with the SRBS of other selected government agencies. 4. That recently the authority faced an increment in the staff attrition, and one of the pull factors is the war of talent by other parastatals and private institutions, which is due to lack of competitive salaries. If the RBS is discontinued, the attrition rate is likely to spiral and adversely impact URA's strategic agenda of raising the contribution of tax to GDP ratio to 20%. The spiraling talent attrition would also have other contingent effects like increased recruitment and training costs and skills drain. Committee observations. The committee noted that 1. Many government agencies run retirement benefit schemes, RBS, parallel to pension and National Social Security Fund. These include Uganda Bureau of Statistics, UBOS, Bank of Uganda, BOU, National Water and Sewerage Corporations, NWSC, Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited, among others. However, each entity has a different contribution. The committee did not find any legal or regulatory impediment, especially considering that the amount has always been appropriated by Parliament. There is no standard figure, rate, to guide entities on the minimum or maximum contribution that may provide in their in-house retirement schemes. 4. Withdrawing the benefits already provided for in the Human Resource Manual may amount to breach of the employment contract with attendant legal ramifications. Recommendations. The committee recommends that 1. Government, through ULBRA, should streamline the approval process for retirement benefit schemes across MDAs to avoid budgetary distortion and exaggerations. 2. Government should streamline and provide a cap for such contributions to avoid distortions across MDAs. The third significant query raised by the Auditor General, Right Honourable Speaker and Honourable Members, are the high costs of motor vehicle repair and maintenance. The Auditor General reviewed the financial statements of URA and established that a total of 6.4 billion was spent on the repair of motor vehicles for the financial year ended 2023-24. The audit reviewed 61 vehicles with the highest repair expenditure, noted that for the last 3 financial years, 2021 to 22, 2022 to 23 and 2023 to 24. An average of 77 million was spent on repairs for each of the selected 61 vehicles. The highest expenditure for repairs on an individual vehicle in a year was 106 million. The high expenditure on the repairs for motor vehicles is an indicator of an old, uneconomical fleet. Management explained that vehicles have served on average 8 to 12 years, and undergone major repairs. Out of the 61 selected vehicles, 12 vehicles had engine overhauls, 21 were deployed in upcountry regions, and 16 in enforcement operations. Resources to acquire new vehicles were availed for the financial year 24-25 to the tune of Uganda shillings 6.7 billion. The procurement process to acquire additional 25 vehicles was initiated and currently is at contracting stage, awaiting approval by the Solicitor General. See Annex 4.C, later to Solicitor General. The process of disposal of 38 old vehicles is in its final stages. While interfacing with the committee, it was revealed that the delivery of 25 vehicles was expected in December 2025. The committee noted that during financial year 21-22, URA procured 132 vehicles to replace the aging fleet. 2, that the period taken by the supplier to deliver the vehicle is unnecessarily too long, and this impacts on service delivery since mobility is affected. Recommendations. The committee recommends that the accounting officer should ensure expeditious procurement and delivery of the new vehicles. Disposal and replacement of the aging fleet of vehicles should be expedited to mitigate the cost of vehicle maintenance. In addition, it will generate NTR and also ease movement of staff in the execution of the entity's mandate. 3.1.4, the potential risk of bank accounts in financial institutions being garnished. Section 44(1) of the Civil Procedure Act, Cap 283, allows a successful party in a legal claim in pursuit of recovering their money to attach property, including money belonging to the unsuccessful party, whether the property be held in the name of the successful party or by another person, the unsuccessful party, or by another person in trust for or on behalf of the unsuccessful party. In addition, the accounts are not exempted under Section 44(1)J of the Civil Procedure Act. The Auditor General noted that in the case of John Maniraguha versus Uganda Revenue Authority, miscellaneous application number 2770 of 12,023, the High Court allowed 4 of URA's bank accounts to be held in Stanbic Bank Limited to be attached and organ shared in the recovery of a sum of 26.3 billion in execution of miscellaneous application number 641 of 2023, as shown in the table below. These are the accounts number 1 to 4. The court observed that the funds in those bank accounts were not exempted from the attachment by law, and neither were they classified as being part of the consolidated fund. Subsequently, the bank accounts were garnished and unattached under the orders of the court until the money owed to the successful party was paid. This implies that the bank accounts are exposed to a high risk of attachment and loss of funds since they are not protected by law. In response, the management informed the committee that 1, URA has taken the proactive approach of being compliant when demands for payment are made, seeking stays of execution where there are pending appeals, and pursuing mediation to settle any legal matters. This has reduced the threats of garnishment of your accounts. In the meantime, management has written to the Attorney General and will continue to engage with the judiciary in this regard. The engagement will reference his earlier guidance that URA accounts should not be garnished, and how in practice this has not been deterred the judiciary or applicants. We will also make inquiries on the possible need for legislation to protect accounts from being garnished. Annex 4.4, the letter of the Learned Attorney General. Management explained, among others, that the Attorney General had provided guidance on execution orders in a letter dated 19th May 2022, Annex 4.4, concerning execution against government agencies. However, this guidance was disregarded in this case, but have since resolved all the cases with Johnny Maniraguha, but other threats to garnish the accounts continued. Right, Honourable Speaker and colleagues, the committee observes that the Attorney General's opinion, although well-intentioned, is misleading, not backed by law, and overzealous interpretation that stretches the law on execution of court orders. There are specific laws which protect specific government funds from being attached. These include Section 19(4) of the Government Proceedings Act, Cap 287, and Section 6(2) of the Local Governments Act, Cap 139. In addition, it would be unconstitutional to deny persons the fruits of their judgments on the basis of an opinion issued by the Attorney General to courts of law, especially in cases of gross unfairness and illegality. Indeed, that would amount to unnecessarily limiting the power of court. Recommendation. The committee recommends that this query be dropped. Provision of consultancy services for audit of telecoms. The Auditor General established that Uganda Revenue Authority on 31st May 2023 signed a contract with a foreign company for the provision of consultancy services for the audit of telecoms at a contract sum or price of 15.7 billion and an addition 5% of the revenue share of the new revenue recovered by URA from the audit and paid to URA. The contract was expected to run for 18 months and would thus end on 30th November 2024. The terms of reference of the consultancy services were A, to give assurance on the reliability and completeness of all revenues declared by the sector players from all revenue streams for tax computation for the period of 2018 to 2022. B, to assess if the associated tax due has been accurately accounted for and paid over the period. C, the consultant was also expected to pass on skills to at least 15 URA telecom auditors through an organized skilling and training program. A review of the progress of the project by the Auditor General led to the following observations. Evidence of delivery of hardware and software components. The Auditor General reviewed the contract, in which a significant portion of the total cost amounted to 11.4 billion, which is USD 3,073,016, was allocated to hardware and software purchases. The items are required to be handed over to the Uganda Revenue Authority upon expiry of the contract. The pricing details are as follows. Total hardware costing would be to the tune of 1,258,470. 1,258,470 USD. Total software costing would be 1,814,546, with the total as stated 114. The source is the audit report 2024. It was established that by September 2023, the contractor had received full payment amounting to 15.7 billion for the entire contract. However, the Auditor General noted that there was no documentation indicating that URA had verified the acquisition or delivery of these items as provided for in the contract. Under the circumstances, there is risk that 1. Equipment may not have been procured. 2. The process could result into a conflict at the end of the contract since the procured equipment was not verified, confirmed, and labeled. Value for money may not have been achieved. In response, the accounting officer stated that 1. URA Telecom's audit project team was able to verify the equipment through a site validation visit. The report verified and confirmed that the hardware and software was purchased. There was, however, a variation of specification from the original scope that was due to meet unforeseen requirements needed to enable completion of the audit work. Such requirements include 1. Increased data than anticipated. 2. Inconsistent data structure that required more storage. 3. Telecom data quality issues. Duplication of data. The contract is a service contract for the provision of professional consultancy for telecom audit services. The amount in reference were mobilization fees, including purchase of hardware, software, and other elements. To enable the consulting work happen, URA instructed its staff to verify and receive equipment mobilization and used for consultants at the end of the contract. Upon advice of the Auditor General to verify that the equipment was purchased regardless of nature of the contract, the verification was done. To confirm equipment purchased and the variations in specifications were observed. Refer to Annex 4.5 A and B. The verification reports by the expert team deployed by the project to do the following. Management further explained that the contract fee totaled to 15.7 billion and was for the acquisition of hardware, software tools, and other costs to aid the consultant's execution of the contract. Committee observed the progress of the report. The Auditor General noted that the contract for the project was signed on 31st May 2023 with an expected duration of 18 months and a contract end date of 30th November 2024. The Auditor General further observed the following. The work remains incomplete as only MTN has been audited and other telecom companies' audits are yet to commence. B. The vendor was in the process of obtaining necessary information from Airtel Uganda, indicating delays in completing the required audits. For information, we are 1 year past the expiry of the contract date. There were no reports or updates on audits of other telecoms, including Smart Telecom, Rock Telecom, Liquid Telecom, Leica Mobile, among others. The contract stipulated knowledge transfer, especially the training of 15 URA officers to conduct similar audits in the future. However, there was no evidence of knowledge transfer or training sessions as provided, casting doubt on the sustainability of the intervention. These findings raise concerns about the likelihood of the project fully achieving its intended objectives. Management explained that requests were made to all telecom companies to submit big data volumes for the 5-year investigative audit period, January 2018 to December 2022. Management also acknowledged delays but clarified that the majority of the companies had submitted the required data and that investigations were ongoing. The accounting officer informed the committee that the primary reason for the delay was the prolonged time required to obtain data from the telecom companies. Data recovery and submission to URA by the telecoms took long. The final data sets were received by May 2024, leaving the project with only 6 months to complete work that was originally expected to take 1.5 years. Accounting officer revealed that currently MTN engagements have covered an audit period of 3 years with an assessment of undeclared tax. There have been prolonged discussions with MTN on the undeclared tax assessed, which contribute to the delays. With momentum gained, URA expects that the Telecom audit will be conducted by November 2025. He provided a brief update on the Telecom audit progress as follows. MTN is audited, assessed, and under reconciliation. Airtel analysis in progress. Smart Telecom work in progress. Rock Telecom work in progress. Liquid Telecom work in progress. Leica Mobile work in progress. Further information provided by URA indicates that 3 URA staff have been working with the consultant during the first phase of the MTN audit, and other staff will be onboarded on job upscaling during the other phases of the audit to achieve the expected skills transfer of at least 15 URA Telecom auditors. Committee observations. That 1, it is abundantly clear that both parties did not fully appreciate the complexity and nature of the contract they were entering into. For example, the contract provided for executing within 1.5 years, thereby expiring by November 2024. To date, the work in respect of all the telecom companies is not even a quarter executed. 2, the report on verification of equipment is itself dated 21st February 2025, 3 months after the expiry of the contract, implying therefore that the contract expired before the team could get on ground to start the work. The Telecom audit initiated by URA has exceeded the expected contract period, and this affects reporting and recovery of revenue in the undeclared taxes. There is no proof that URA has renegotiated the contract terms to ensure that work is expedited within the new alluded to timelines. The contract expired. None of the processes has been concluded, considering that reconciliation between URA and MTN is still ongoing. With the recent period left with 1.5 months to end, only 3 of the 15 URA staff have been involved in the MTN audit, leaving no possibility for the skilling of the remaining 12 in the short period. Recommendations. That the accounting officer should engage contractor to provide a detailed projection on when the project is expected to end and iron out any bottlenecks hindering the realization of the project. In particular, URA should renegotiate the timelines within which to execute the contract with specific outputs and associated timelines. Compliance with relevant regulatory framework on procurement management. Right Honourable Speaker and Honourable Members, multi-year commitments without parliamentary approval. Section 22(1) of the Public Finance Management Act, Cap 171, states that a vote shall not enter into a contract, transaction or agreement that binds the government to financial commitment for more than 1 financial year, or which results in a contingent liability, except where the financial commitment or contingent liability is authorized by Parliament. Contrary to the above, it was observed that the authority awarded multi-year contracts amounting to 53.9 billion without evidence of approval by Parliament. The Auditor General observed that failure to obtain parliamentary approval for these multi-year commitments is irregular and defeats the purpose of the Public Finance Management Act in ensuring proper public financial management and discipline. In response, the Accounting Officer informed the committee that URA submitted her multi-year commitments for the financial year 24-25 to the Minister of Finance, see Annexure 4.6a, later to PSST requests for confirmation of multi-year commitments for financial year 24-25, and Annexure B 4.6b list of procurements forming multi-year commitments. 4.6c, later to Ministry of Finance seeking parliamentary approval of multi-year commitments for financial year 24-25 and going forward. Management further explained that approval was obtained from the Permanent Secretary to the Treasury, PSST. Committee observes, whereas it is within the ambit of the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development to approve commitments from URA and other agencies of government, the final approval for expenditure lies with Parliament, Section 13(1) of the PFMA. Therefore, continuing to approve multi-year commitments without parliamentary approval is a breach of Section 22(1) of the Public Finance Management Act, Cap 171. The committee notes, however, that where Parliament approves the entity's budget and work plan for the financial year under review, it is deemed to have approved. It is apparent that since the entity is allowed to retain some funds, it could have resorted to the same funds, which still would be use of funds without appropriation, contrary to the law. The committee was not presented with the ministerial approval for the multi-year commitment, although the accounting office explained that permission was obtained from the PSST. Authority from Parliament was not obtained as required under Section 22 of the PFMA. In the absence of such authority, it is not clear where the entity got the money to execute the multi-year commitment. It is the duty of Ministry of Finance to ensure, upon request, that the necessary parliamentary approval is obtained before entry into any execution of multi-year contracts. The committee recommends that the accounting officer should always ensure parliamentary approval is obtained for a multi-year contract to ensure compliance with the law. Performance evaluation. Review of the implementation of the entity's mandate. Right Honorable Speaker, the committee went through the entire record and finding of the Auditor General, and from page 19 through to page 22, and came up with the recommendations thereon, and then the review of the implementation of the approved budget at page 23 is canvassed through to page 26. Management explained that recruitment of 1,200 staff is in the final stages. Written assessments were completed on January 12, 2025. Oral interviews commenced on February 17th to 28th of 2025, and appointments will be effective March 2025. The procurement of 250 computers was also completed on October 11th, 2024, with the supply of laptops. Procurement of workstations and other furniture was also completed in August 2024. The progress of the procurement for the construction of Mbale office was at bid evaluation stage. The committee observes that failure to utilize all the allocated funds locks up resources for service delivery in other areas. The presence of inherent structural and operational bottlenecks encountered by URA in the implementation of planned activities affect optimal budget absorption. Recommendations. The accounting officer should see to it that all warranted funds are utilized to ensure timely implementation of the planned activities. All structural and operational bottlenecks encountered by URA in the implementation of planned activities should be assessed and eliminated to achieve optimal budget absorption. We make an analysis on implementation of unfunded activities, Right Honorable Speaker, at pages 28, 29, through to page 31, and make make observations at page, make observations at page 30 to 31. Not all warranted funds were fully utilized on the planned activities. There continues to exist structural and operational bottlenecks that impede the implementation of URA's full mandate, and these include but are not limited to persistent strikes by taxpayers. Recommendation: accounting officers should see to it that all unwarranted funds are utilized to ensure timely implementation of the planned activities. All structural and operational bottlenecks encountered by URA in the implementation of planned activities should be assessed and eliminated to achieve optimal budget absorption. Tax education should be enhanced and government intervention expedited to facilitate the entity in executing its mandate. Right Honourable Speaker, those are the salient features in the audit in respect of Uganda Revenue Authority Corporate Services.